Hey, it is Zennial Gamer here today to talk about Tricaru. That is Tricaru with fight runes, the term that Ace coined. So guys, before we jump into this video, just a quick thing. I want to do a shout out to Seishizo, who I believe is the one who invented this team. For sure, he's the one who invented using A-Star in the Necro teams. Now, the team that we're going to be talking about will actually work for DB12 and PC10, and we'll talk about that briefly at the end, but the focus for this video is going to be the Necro B12. I also want to do a shout out to Stoned Boss, who is currently rank 6. You can see I'm rank 19. Currently rank 6 in Necro. That is the account that Ace was looking at in his video. So the history here is basically I saw Ace's video, and I was like, man, I want to build that. That looks better, right? So when I saw Ace's video, I decided to try and build it, and this was by far and away the most complicated team I think I have ever tried to build. Now, part of it is I don't think there's any guides out there on how to build it, so that's obviously what we're going to be doing today is kind of talking you through. And the reason there is no guides is because there's a lot of different possible variations for how you can ruin your monsters for this team. So what we're going to be talking about today is how the team works, what those variations of runes are, and how to find which variation is going to work best for you. Now, last thing I want to throw out at the start is this is definitely endgame content, guys. The runes that are required to make this team work, they are endgame runes. I think my team is actually pretty near the bottom of what you need in order to make this work, and it took me 2 days to really get the team where I wanted it, like 2 full days. The first day was really just figuring out how the team worked, getting my speed tuning right, figuring out a couple of important tricks. Then I re-runed the entire team twice, trying to fine-tune the speed of the runs, basically, and also trying to make sure that it worked in all 3 dungeons where you're going to be using different variations of it. So guys, if you're trying to build this team, please expect that you're going to need some really, really high rune quality just to hit the entry level for it. Even if you're not running it as fast as I'm running it, just to make it work at all, you are going to need endgame runes or close to endgame runes. Now, you can see above me, that's an example of an average set of 10 runs for me. This team averages about 35 seconds overall where I'm at. One set of 10, maybe a 32-second average. The next one, maybe a 38-second average. But the overall is going to be right around 35. Fastest runs are about 25 seconds. Slowest runs are about 50 seconds. Most of it has to do with whether or not Lucian derps on the first wave. That actually matters more than if he derps on the third wave. If he derps on the first wave, he's going to blow his amp on the mid-boss, and then he's going to be forced to derp the third wave as well. So the way this team works, Lucian should amp the first wave. This second wave, we're just going to clear. We're going to get a defense break from the Ikaru, and then we're going to clear it with our A-Star. Lucian should amp right here as well, hopefully. And then my Lucian dies to the reflected damage there. Now, that's really, really important because the A-Star has a multi-hit skill 1. So when the Ikaru team up with the A-Star, they're going to break the shield faster, which means we're going to drop the boss faster. So, in order to make sure that the Lucian dies on the third wave, he has to be as squishy as you can make him. And then obviously he's got to use those amps so that he takes enough reflected damage to die. Now, part of making sure that your Lucian dies is making sure that he's not just killing these waves, but he's overkilling the hell out of these waves. We're going to walk through, obviously, all the stats of my team after I explain the team, but I will tell you my Lucian is overkilling these waves by probably about 30%, maybe 35%. This Lucian, when I first built him, I was building him, I think I built him with cards that were about 6,500, which still cleared the waves, but he did not die on that 4th wave, even when everything went right, and that was causing some fails. So you're going to want to make sure that you've got your Lucian as fat as you can possibly get him. Now, there's another important thing with this team, and that is that your monsters all need to have at least 169 combat speed. So if you've got max speed towers, then your Ikaru can be at plus 42 speed, plus 45 speed, which is 153 total. That's with max speed towers. Without max speed towers, they'll need to be a little bit faster, and then your Lucian needs to act in front of your Ikaru. So we're not worried about, like in the original versions of the Tricaru team, we needed like 1 super fast Ikaru so that we would get more turns on the final boss. Obviously, we're not using Vernahile. in the Necro team, and this team will work just fine in DB12. So we don't need the Ikaru to be super fast, but they all need to be fast enough to go in front of the mid boss. And that's really because you need to make sure that you're using the Lucian attack lead so that you can just overkill those monsters so that you take enough damage for the Lucian to die. Now, my Lucian right here is in double fight blade. Obviously, it would be better if I could put him in triple fight, but he does need 100 crit rate. He needs to be in the strongest set you can make, and you need to get him as many fight sets as you can. Just using him on rage means you're not necessarily going to have enough fight sets to make sure that your A-star is able to kill the boss after the Lucian dies off. Some of this depends on your rune quality, and some of it depends on how you build the Ikaru. So we'll talk about the Ikaru in a minute, but as far as the rune quality goes, maybe you have better fight runes than I do. And keep in mind also that we have to keep the Lucian as squishy as possible. So I could have given my Lucian more damage, but if I had done that, he would have also had too much HP and he might not have died off. So some of the runes I have that have more damage also have more HP. So the trick to this is building the strongest Lucian you can on multiple fight sets that's fast enough to act first on the team and weak enough, squishy enough to die to the reflected damage on the third wave. It's a complicated build, guys. Now, this is why I mentioned it took me a day to build the team the first time, and the reason for that is because at first I built my Ikaru slow, and I used their 23 speed lead, but with their 23 speed lead, I had to make 190 speed Lucian for him to act first, and he didn't have enough damage to overkill the waves. So that's why I recommend building your Ikaru at the 153. Now, if you have a super fat Lucian on fight runes, then you just want to build your Ikaru slower so that when they take the speed lead, they're still sitting around 169 combat speed so that you don't have to make the crazy fast Lucian. Keeping in mind that with speed towers and speed lead, they're getting about 40 speed bonus. You're going to need them somewhere around 21 plus 21 speed only, and not much faster, because the faster they are, the harder it is to build the Lucian. Now, the next thing we want to talk about is rune sets. You're going to see this Ikaru is actually in a rage set. So, when I built the team the first time and I got it stable, my Necro team sped up, but my Dragons team slowed down because I had all my Ikaru in rage before. My Dragons team was averaging about 41-42 seconds, and in the fight sets build, it dropped to about 44 seconds. So the reason I rebuilt the team 2 more times was try to speed up that Dragons team. I got an immediate speed boost in the Necro team, but I wanted to speed the Dragons team back up to where it was as well. What I settled on was using double fight determination, and then rage fight. So I've got a total of 7 fight sets between the Lucian and the Ikaru. I've got 2 determination sets, which is part of what makes it harder for my Lucian to make sure that my Lucian dies. And then I've got the 1 Ikaru that's on rage with, not max crit rate, but good crit rate. We've also got 30, 31 accuracy, and then 43 accuracy here. Now, the other thing that we did is for our DB12, I actually nerfed my Vertihile's damage to add another fight set onto him as well. And that's counterintuitive because Vertihile's your strongest hitter in DB12. But because there are so many fight sets, the Ikaru in these builds are hitting harder than like just in guard or determination runes, and that extra fight set on the Vertihile added more net damage than I lost by changing his runes. So these are the Vertihile stats right here. Definitely the Vertihile got a little bit of a nerf, but the fight set overall did the trick for what I needed in order to clear. Now, I tested the Ikaru in lower accuracy builds, and then I also tested them in higher accuracy builds. While the run times are more stable in higher accuracy builds, the actual average is lower because of the amount of damage that I was giving up. And the run times are, not only are the run times unstable, but I even had a fail when I tried to run the Ikaru in lower accuracy. So my recommendation for them is to do a 30, a 30, and a 40. As far as your minimum, if you can get some extra skill 1 accuracy on your artifacts, then that's going to help ease up that accuracy requirement as well. But keep in mind that the single most important thing for your artifacts for all of your monsters, A-Star, the Ikaru, and Vertihile, is going to be damage dealt by attacking together. And then the second most important thing, at least on the type artifact, is going to be skill 1 crit damage, and on the attribute artifact, it's going to be damage dealt on fire, because the fire boss does
A few moments later.
Is going to be damage dealt on fire because the dragon is the harder one to kill than Necro, except for your Lucian, where obviously you want damage dealt on dark, and for your A-star also damage dealt on dark. If you can get some additional damage by X, that's nice, but it's certainly not what we're... it doesn't add enough that it makes a big deal. What you're really looking for from this artifact is damage dealt by attacking together, which you can see I'm lacking. This is the last artifact I'm lacking, and I'm still farming it. And then damage dealt on fire. And what you're looking for on this artifact, skill 1 crit damage, skill 1 accuracy, and damage dealt by attacking together. The fastest Vertihile Transmog is this one, the Halloween one. The second fastest one is the Skateboard one, and they're only like 0.17 seconds per run apart. So if you already have the Skateboard one, don't worry about buying this one, but if you don't have either of them, this is the faster one. Now, the Tricaru Transmog can save you about 3 seconds per run. It's definitely one of the more important transmogs, and there is only one. A couple of tricks with the transmog. First of all, you want to leave the one that does the most damage not transmogged. That way he always acts last, and so that way the defense break is applied before he goes. Second thing is you want the one with the highest accuracy to actually act second in your turn order. Now the reason for this is because the first Tricaru to go is going to be running a team up, so the highest accuracy acting second guarantees you that defense break, or it gives you better odds of that defense break when you attack your first monster. The last thing is you also want your highest damage Tricaru to be your first monster to act. This way he gives himself the attack buff on the team up. So when you're setting your turn orders, now if you guys noticed, all 3 of mine are the exact same speed. That gave me the ability to set the turn order based on how I load them in here. So you can see that my strongest hitter is going first, which means he gets the attack buff. My highest accuracy is going second, so that I have the chance to land that defense break on the first monster. And then my other Tricaru is just going third. So we'll go ahead and run this. Now, as I mentioned, this team will work on all 3 of Necro B12, Dragons B12, and PC10. Alright guys, so we are here in the Summoner's War Optimizer. I'm actually in the Pro version, and highly recommend, if you spend anything on this game at all, it is the best $15 you can ever spend. It's a one-time purchase, no recurring fees. This is not sponsored. I don't get paid for that. As a matter of fact, in addition to buying the Pro, I'm also a Patreon of Xzandro's, because I can't imagine playing this game without the Optimizer. With that said, for what we're doing today, the free version of the Optimizer will work. But what we're doing today is pretty in-depth, so you're going to be running some really, really long searches that will take a really long time if you're doing it in the free version. But I am going to be showing you the search parameters as if you're in the Pro version, because you're going to need to search a lot of your rune depth. So just keep in mind that if you were to use these search parameters in the free version, it would take forever, and you're going to want to narrow those parameters down. Now, the way that I did this was I actually loaded up my first Tricaru, and the first thing I tried to do was see if I could build him in triple fight. Now this is going to be a long process, so I'm not going to actually demonstrate the entire process in this video. It would make the video take forever. Instead, I want to give you a high-level overview of the process that you want to go through. Now, when I searched for it, I did only a defense slot 6 rune, just on the off chance that I had like some crazy high defense sub on a crit damage or crit rate rune or even a speed rune, because I knew I needed to make all of my set criteria. We did go ahead and use Grind's minimum, and I used him Immemorial, but I did not simulate runes, because if you simulate runes, then it's going to show you everything assuming that you've got a max hero speed grind, which is +4, and that can really screw up your speed tuning. Now, for this particular search, I did not use the display result values with arena towers that I showed you guys how to do in the previous Tricaru video. Because I was looking for very specific stat thresholds, and it was just easier for me not to search for it that way. So I actually used this chart to look up the specific amounts of defense I needed by determination sets. And you guys will see as we go through the process, you'll see why this was easier. It's because as I ran each build, I was trying to figure out how many determination sets I would need in order to get the most amount of fight sets possible. So you're running a lot of different builds. It was easier for me to just look up these target numbers than to continue to try and adjust for arena values. I will tell you guys, this chart is available in our Discord with a much cleaner image. So there's a link to our Discord server in the description of the video. If you're not in it, please feel free to join. Also, shout out to Kirinos, who provided this chart in Discord. I'm not sure if he's the one who actually built the chart or not, but since there's no other credit, I do want to give a shout out where it's due. Give credit where it's due. So this is the chart that I use. So you guys can see right here, 2380 is max towers and guild skills. One thing I do want to note, this 2265 with 2 determination sets, it's actually 2264. That wound up being really important for me because I had a build at 2264. Now, one last thing I need to note here, guys, is if your towers are not maxed, then you will need to run this using the options for arena towers and guild war flags. I showed how to do that in the Tricaru video, so you can look that up in that video as well. But I'm just assuming right now, if you're trying to build this team, your towers are probably maxed, or at least your defense and your speed towers are. So we come down here. What we know is we need plus 2380, so we're actually going to take 2380 plus 736. That comes out to 3116. So that's what we're looking for, is 3,116 defense. And then we're going to subtract 200 for the artifacts, so that's 2916. So with no determination sets, what we need is a total of 2,916 defense. We also need a 153 speed. Again, this is with max towers. We need 153 speed. And then we want 30 accuracy at a minimum. However, you may have some accuracy gems in your inventory. So if that's the case, you might run it at 23 accuracy and then look at the builds. That makes this a longer process because you're going to be looking at every build individually to figure out what you can gem and grind. But it's up to you if you want to try and optimize the team that far. So for our purposes, we'll just go ahead and put in 30 accuracy. Then the last thing we're going to do is configure our damage. Now keep in mind, we'll get different amounts of damage based on which monster it's hitting and which skill it's hitting. So all we really want is some sort of point of reference. So for right here, we're just going to put in defense break, attack buff. We're going to assume that we're hitting the Dragons B12 boss. And again, we're just looking for a point of reference so we can compare one build to another. We're going to hit average, but in the past video, I said you would also do a 15 crit rate leader skill to account for the attribute advantage you have on the boss. Not on the crystals, but on the boss. But since we're also taking this team into Necro now, we're no longer going to run that leader skill. We're going to assume that we don't have attribute advantage more often than we do have attribute advantage. We want the average right here. We're going to go ahead and hit apply. And then obviously you want to use locked runes, or at least I did. You may or may not want to use locked runes. And then of course I do like just infinite search depth. I want it to run every build possible. Again, adjust for the version of optimizer you're using. And then after that, I just hit optimize and I check if I can find any builds or not. You can see that I didn't. So from there, what I actually did was just run it as double fight with nothing to see what my build options were. And then I ran it with double fight determination. And then eventually I found my build, right? So I went double fight determination, I found my build. And so the next step I did was I chose my build, and again, we're just doing this at kind of random. So I sorted by damage to find the build that did the most damage. This one's 4,100 per hit, it's got the accuracy. If I look down right beneath it, we've got 3,900 per hit with an extra 10 accuracy. So that was the build I think I liked a little bit more, so I took this one. I came up here and I went ahead and I equipped my runes. Then I came back to the optimizer and I went exclude Ikaru 1 and I loaded up Ikaru 2. Now I ran this at double fight. Now I ran this one again at triple fight, but this time I added in one determination set because I know that I have a determination set. So then I went double fight determination again, ran the optimizer again, and so on and so forth. So the thing that happened with me is initially I found a triple fight build, but then when I tried to run my second Ikaru, I couldn't make a triple fight build, but I could make double fight determination. Well, once I had determination on my second Ikaru, that provided a better build for my first Ikaru, because now there was a determination set in play as well. So the reason I'm showing you this process is because you don't want to immediately build one before building the others. You're going to want to go back and forth through all three of them until you've found the best builds for all three, using as many fight sets and as few determination sets as possible. You may also want to see what happens if you run one on fight and double determination to see if that would let you run the other two on triple fight. So you really want to look at the builds of all three of them. The important thing is you want to make sure that you hit your stat thresholds, but you want to look at the builds of all three of them, select the builds, lock them in the optimizer, and then if you find that you're just going down a bad path, right? So let's say you find builds for the first two, but you can no longer make the third one. What you're going to do is clear out all the builds that you've made, and you're going to come back in here and you're simply going to re-import your JSON file. Because by re-importing it, you undo all those builds that you locked, and it allows you to start over. Now, I warned you guys at the start, this was the most complicated team I've built, and it's just because I was stretching my runes so thin. So if you guys just have an abundant amount of amazing fight runes with tons of defense, maybe you don't need to go through this whole process. But if you're like me and you're kind of right on the edge, then you're going to need to cycle through those Ikaru several times to figure out how many determination sets against how many fight sets you need. Because every time you add a determination set to a later Ikaru, you can actually change the builds of the earlier Ikaru to give them more offense. Now, ultimately, I built the team the first time with 4 determination sets and 5 fight sets, and what I found is that it just didn't have enough damage output for my dragons team. It slowed my dragons down. So I wound up going back and rebuilding it again using a rage set on that one Ikaru that I showed you, and then doing double fight determination on each of the other 2 Ikaru, and then getting the extra fight sets in, or the extra fight set singular in on the Vertihile, and that was what allowed me to get my Dragon's B12 time back down to where it was before, while still getting that 9-second increase on the Necro team. So like I said, this team averages, it's going to be in the mid-50-second range if you're targeting the towers. It's going to be in the mid-40-second range if you target the boss direct. It just has that 1 to 2% fail rate when you target the boss direct. That's probably the way I'm going to go in the long run. I love the idea of just using 6 monsters to handle 3 dungeons. Not that I have any shortage of monsters. I wouldn't even mind using a lot of monsters for all the dungeons. The problem is that the alternative monsters are all monsters I use in other places as well. And I really want to get my water homunculus back and keep using my yen and orochi how I use them now. So there you go. You can see that run was 37 seconds. That run was very clean. So anyway, guys, on that note, we jumped forward one more run just so you could see, because I know it went 37 seconds the last 2 times. I jumped forward one more run so you could see the 58-second range. That's kind of your range on this team. It's like 37 to 105 or something. It's got a really wide range. That's when you target the boss direct. The range is actually narrower when you target the towers, but the average time is much slower. So anyway, guys, like I said, this is probably going to be a really long video once I've edited it, because it's definitely the most complicated team that I've personally built. I hope that I was able to, I don't want to say simplify because it's a complicated team, but I hope I was at least able to give you guys some guidance on how to try to build this team for yourselves. If you have the rune quality for it, it's totally worth it. 35-second average Necro, you're still at the 40-second average Dragons, which if you weren't running Rage Ikaru before, then you're probably speeding up at that point. And then you can use the same monsters for PC10 and get all of your monster box back. So, guys, hope you enjoyed the team, or if you can't build the team, I at least hope you enjoyed the video. I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time. Hey guys, if you're still with me to this point, then that means that you probably liked the video, found it entertaining, or even better, both. So please smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, and leave a comment down below, because those things help the channel grow, and more importantly, they show me that the video is useful, and that's the whole reason I do this in the first place.